Hello and welcome to another character review. Today, we will be taking a look at Raiden Shogun. I did cover her during the rapid fire review, but I didn't say in that video that characters in it will absolutely not get a video. It was just throw out some opinions, some quick rapid fire opinions on characters that I'm not, not in the foreseeable future will get a review necessarily. But then they revealed the Raiden, rerun. I was like, I guess maybe we can play some Hyperbloom. Anyway, before we start as well, I need to issue an epilepsy and flashing images warning. This is a Raiden video, and back-to-back bursts I would guess can cause problems. Heck, honestly, everything in Raiden's kit can be problematic for someone with epilepsy and, sensitivity to so much flashing. So please genuinely be cautious. So with that out of the way, Raiden is the viable Electro Archon. She is an Electro polearm character with really nice off-field and on-field presence. She is amazing at helping with energy and offers a bit of a unique buff. She was very powerful when she was introduced, saving Electro was the thing back then because it was genuinely pretty weak because only Kachink was really there and it wasn't that strong. But her damage really made Electro jump. But she also grew even stronger and more versatile with the introduction of Dendro, much like many other Electro characters, but Raiden really liked Dendro. We won't touch upon her attacks as they are not an integral part of her kit, but I think worth mentioning is that like Child, Raiden has an ability that uses attacks, but that ability has different attack scalings, just like Child's skill. Meaning, though, that you can completely not level up Raiden's attack talent and have no problems. This is just a nice resource-saving tip. And yeah, that's it. There's nothing really on Raiden's attacks. She has a cool charge attack, I guess. That's about it. You'll never see it. Alright, now we can fully begin. Raiden's skill is an AoE attack in front of her, dealing electro damage and placing a buff on all of your characters. This buff gives a coordinated attack whenever your characters deal damage, and this can be triggered with any ability on-field and from off-field abilities. The first attack has some okay scaling, while the coordinated attacks are pretty weak. The main point of those attacks is applying Electro in a very good AoE. The range is basically infinite, wherever something hits an attack will trigger. This ability is one of the two main ways of applying true AoE Electro off-field. Beidou is technically AoE, but she needs multiple enemies. It's chain lightning mostly. The only other one comparable with Raiden is Cookie's skill. They are very much the same with their own differences and uses. I know that sounded really weird, but yeah. While Cookie has the ring around the character, it's a bit more controllable, right? But the range isn't that big. Raiden is a bit more hectic, but it is really nice with characters that have a bit of range, or it can also let's say chase enemies a bit if they run away, but you still manage to do some damage. They do same things, but they have differences and uses. Additionally, when the skill is active, characters will get a burst damage buff based on the energy cost of their burst. This is a nice extra buff that is completely unique to Raiden. Sure, the emblem artifact set exists, but not only does that need a character to stack a lot of ER, you also can't have two full artifact sets on a character. So this buff ends up being really nice on characters that would like to squeeze a bit of extra damage from their burst. As for particle generation, the initial attack doesn't generate any particles, and the coordinated attacks have a 50% chance of creating a particle. While this might sound bad, it actually isn't at all. For Raiden, well, we will see on her artifact, but she completely scales with energy recharge, so it isn't a problem for her. She will collect the particles off the field most of the time, but because of the incredible amount of energy she has, and next on her burst, we'll see that she has ways of generating energy with it. So all in all, for Raiden, the initial cast not generating energy as well is not a problem at all. And yeah, because of how much ER Raiden usually has, the particle generation is perfectly fine. For other characters, it is still very good. The coordinated attacks have a 0.9 seconds cooldown, but even without perfectly timing damage for the attacks, the particle generation in a rotation is very good for feeding everybody, on-field and off-field. In comparison, without going into detail, Raiden's particle generation is a bit below Beidou, doing perfect parries exactly off cooldown, and a little bit more below Fischl at C6, also with perfect duration on Oz. So you can see how good this skill is for energy. And it has more than 100% uptime. The cooldown of the skill is 10 seconds, and the duration is 25 seconds, making it impossible to fuck up, unlike the examples above. It's extremely easy to manage the skill, and again, because of this absolute passive particle generation, and again, as mentioned, we'll see the burst, there is no energy problem whatsoever in the team. No matter how energy hungry your teammates are, Raiden will make sure that you get energy. And this skill is the main reason why Hyper Bloom Raiden exists. Just like Cookie, the amazing AoE and frequency of the coordinated attacks make for an amazing Hyper Bloom trigger. In non-Hyper Bloom, you will need to be careful because the coordinated attacks can ruin some reactions on certain teams, or most importantly, making it difficult to swirl the correct element with an ammo unit and Viridescent. So, always remember the FEC rule, Pyro, Hydro, Electro, Cryo, when swirling whatever. Right, but yeah, the thing is that the coordinated attack can hit and can take off the aura from the enemy, and then you don't get a VV hit. So you need to be a bit careful with that. And the last note on the skill is that you need to deal damage to trigger the coordinated attacks. This can be very crucial actually, because it means that you can't use the coordinated attacks to destroy shields, because attacking a shielded enemy whose shield completely prevents damage will block the coordinated attacks from triggering. If there's an enemy next to the shielded enemy, that's fine. The AoE of the coordinated attack will help break the shield. But yeah, on a 1v1, it can be really tough. Yeah, like you basically can't use Raiden. Like, let's say, say for Abyss Heralds and Lectors, she's good at bringing their HP down, but after that, not that good on destroying their shields. Unless, again, there's some other enemy to take the damage. Now, onto her burst. Raiden summons her Booba sword and does a giant slash in front of her. After that, her attacks are infused with Electro and they deal burst damage. Sorry, I had to mention that, I hate this. Also, whenever her attacks hit, she will regenerate flat energy to everybody in the team. This can be triggered every 1 second and up to a maximum of 5 times per burst. This is again flat energy. It is not affected by energy recharge, but it's a pretty good amount. Raiden also gets 100% stagger resistance, meaning that nothing can stop her from attacking. Although don't get cocky and be careful not to die because you cannot feel an enemy's attacks because you didn't get staggered. Now, I want to touch upon the damage of the burst. First of all, whenever your other party members cast their bursts, Raiden will get stacks called resolve points, or resolve stacks, based on the energy that was consumed from the burst. These points increase the damage of the initial slash and the attacks afterwards. The maximum amount of points is 60, and you get an approximation of how many points you have by looking at the giant ring that appears behind your characters. That is the resolve points ring. But don't think you can stack these very, very easily. Unless all of your party is filled with 80 plus cost bursts, you most likely won't fully max the resolve points in one rotation. But it's not needed to max them out for good damage. It's only for the really big PP damage, the max, where you might need to, say, maybe like use Raiden's burst in a second rotation perhaps, instead of every rotation. But with some high cost bursts, you will get like 75 to 80% there with the ring, maxing the resolve points. So it's not that bad, but it depends again on each team. But there is also a helping hand to get some resolve points though. Raiden's first Ascension talent is that whenever a party member absorbs an energy particle, Raiden will get 2 resolve points with a cooldown of 3 seconds. It's not much, and with the pretty big cooldown it isn't comparable to using a burst, but it's a very nice extra to just get a little bit more resolve points. So it's but it's a nice helping hand, as I said. Now though, we need to talk about those attacks during the burst. As mentioned before, they are considered burst damage. This means that any normal, charged, or plunging attacks or plunging attack buffs will not work here. Not only that, but any ability that requires a character to deal any form of damage will also not trigger. This caused major mayhem when Raiden released, because she can't be used with Beidou, which would be a very good combo, because Beidou also has Beidou is nice because Electro Shield, her own damage, of course, extra burst damage giving to Beidou, and also Beidou has Electro Res resistance, Shred, so It was a really nice combo that people hoped, but you can't. Although you can trigger abilities that just need the animation or movement of an attack. Xingqiu is a very good example for explaining this. You can have Xingqiu's burst up, and just attacking the air with any character will trigger the range swords. So here, with Raiden, even if the damage of the attacks is considered burst damage, because they are still coded as attacks, they're considered attacks by the code, they will trigger abilities like Xingqiu. It was and still is a very confusing situation. The descriptions of many abilities can be very vague when it comes to pointing out this pretty big difference in way of activation, and yeah, it caused major hell with why can I not trigger Beidou but I can trigger Xingqiu? They're using the same wording, and it isn't necessarily a thing of translation. It was everywhere. So yeah, but yeah, remember that any normal, charged, and plunging attack buffs will not work. They will not work. Elemental burst damage is the main thing, or of course any other type of damage percent, like element damage, but not specifically attack damage buffs. And that is the burst. Two last things to finish off Raiden's main kit is first her second ascension talent, which converts every 1% of her energy recharge above 100%, which is the base, right? But they want to tell you not including that base 100%. It converts that to extra energy restoration from the attacks during the burst and to extra electro damage bonus. This talent has no limit, I need to mention, and in a pretty normal Raiden build, this talent can easily give you around 60% electro damage, which we will need to save for artifacts. The second thing that might sound stupid, but many believe it, is that you don't need Raiden's skill active in order to gain the resolve points or to buff her burst. It is definitely a bit of a fault on MiHoYo, because of how the indicator for the skill buff is placed in a perfect alignment with the resolve points ring, making it feel like the points aren't active. And also they reduce the brightness of the ring in a patch, which in my opinion wasn't needed, it wasn't that bright. But they reduce the brightness, making it difficult to see, especially while in a fight, how many stacks you have, and also making it feel like they're not active, like the stacks aren't active. So yeah, I know it sounds stupid, but I 100% believe that deep inside someone's head, that fear exists or existed, as a first experience with Raiden. Anyway, that is Raiden's main kit. It is very good. She's a very good addition to a collection of characters because she provides so much utility and a lot of damage. Taking a look at her early constellations, her C1 makes it so that resolve points are stacked faster, mainly through electro units, and a bit less on any other one. But this con is fine. It's a nice quality of life constellation, making it very easy to fully stack the resolve points in one rotation, especially if you have just another electro unit. Just a fischl in there will easily help you max this thing out, max the resolve points. Her C2 though, oh boy. You have heard about this thing. Raiden C2 makes it so that all of her burst ignores 60% of an enemy's def. This is absolutely busted. Not only is def ignore a rare effect, at this high amount it is very significant. Also, it's an ignore effect, meaning that it fully stacks with a def shred or, just reduction if it's said like that. This con is a giant boost to Raiden's damage, and in a very unique way, because again, it's rare to see def shreds and def ignores, and again, they stack crazy with each other. But yeah, and thankfully the road to it isn't that bad. The C1, as mentioned, is a nice quality of life to have. I kind of want to talk about her C6 also a bit. So her C6 makes her burst attacks reduced burst cooldowns of other characters by a maximum of 5 seconds. This is an effect that I really wish we could see more on characters, because cooldown reduction, either flat like this on this constellation or with a percentage, is very, very rare. I know it can create mayhem, and some things with rotations, it might break some rotations, but it's so cool. And again, it's something that MiHoYo hasn't experimented with a lot on a base kit level, and I want to see them try something. Damn it, something with cooldown reduction is just really fun to just experiment with again, but they haven't done that. Like Chongyun has the C2, but like that's Chongyun, and here you need a C6 Raiden to actually get somewhere. There are definitely like some like very small cooldown reduction constellations or like resets, but that isn't like true, like that isn't a true cooldown reduction buff. That's what I want to see. I want to have some fun with that. Anyway, let's move to artifacts. Raiden's main sets are Emblem of Severed Fate and anything with Elemental Mastery. Emblem of Severed Fate is the only set for a normal Raiden, since she scales with energy recharge like crazy, as we saw with her second Ascension talent, and her burst is her main source of damage. It's not debatable at all. For Hyper Bloom Raiden, anything Elemental Mastery works. Do you want Gilded Dreams? Do you want Flower of Paradise Lost? Two pieces with EM. All of these are very much equal with each other, with very small percentages in difference. The only other set for Hyper Bloom Raiden is Deep Hood, and she is a very good holder for Deep Hood, but usually there is another unit more suitable to hold Deep Hood in a pure Hyper Bloom Raiden team. In a Quick Bloom team, maybe there's a unit with Deep Hood, maybe there isn't necessarily. Usually there is, but yeah. If you're playing Hyper Bloom Raiden, and for some reason nobody else can hold Deep Hood, she's good, but usually, like 99% of the time, there's another unit to hold Deep Hood. For stats, on normal Raiden, it can be a bit difficult to balance them. For main stats, your sense can be either energy recharge or attack, depending a bit on the weapon and some buffs. The goblet can be electro damage or attack, and this is where the second Ascension talent comes in. Because stacking so much electro damage isn't the best option, attack goblets can be better in very specific situations. And circlets is crit rate, crit damage, whatever is best suitable. For substats though, with the introduction of Dendro, EM has become a useful stat for Raiden, only if you can trigger Quicken. But you shouldn't prioritize it over energy recharge or attack, and especially of course over crit stats. So for substats, it's crit on top, with energy recharge and attack being pretty equal, and Elemental Mastery being a pretty nice bonus. Like, it's now not a dead substat for Raiden, so getting 1 to 2 or a bit more rolls just as a nice extra isn't half bad. But balancing all of these can be very tough. For me, the ideal crit ratio I want to achieve is 50-150, and then getting as much ER without sacrificing a lot of attack. And yeah, that should be your goal as well. I mean, not necessarily the crit ratio, but yeah, get as much ER as you can, again, depending a bit on the weapon, without sacrificing a lot of attack. And if you're planning on playing Raiden with plenty of Dendro, right, with Quicken, then a bit of EM is nice. Here's the thing about artifacts and their substats. Emblem of Severed Fate maxes out at 300% energy recharge. While high, it's not fully impossible for a Raiden to achieve this. I forgot to mention that Raiden, unsurprisingly, has energy recharge as her Ascension stat. But there are so many sources of energy recharge for a Raiden that she can easily hit 250% ER without much trouble. I will stop here though for this, and we will bring ourselves back when we get to weapons, because there is a very big outlier in there that is tied to this thing with Emblem of Severed Fate. Don't try to max out Emblem of Severed Fate, but again, 250% ER should be pretty easy, and then focus a bit on some attack, substats, some EM. For Hyper Bloom Raiden, or well, pure Hyper Bloom, right, not Quick Bloom, stack as much EM as possible. There is no limit. Compared to someone like Toma or even Cookie, where they both would like some other stat, even in pure Bloom reaction teams, Toma with energy recharge because he needs his burst to trigger Virgin, and Cookie can like a bit of HP in order to be a bit tankier and also heal a good amount if you don't have a second healer. Compared to those, Raiden doesn't need anything. In Hyper Bloom, you will never use Raiden's burst. It is an absolute waste. There's no reason to use it to apply Electro because the skill already does the job. As such, there is no need for ER. Hyper Bloom doesn't scale with attack, so no attack needed. And Hyper Bloom can crit normally, or even with Nahida C2, your crit ratio doesn't affect it, so no crit stats needed. So just stack as much EM as possible. For Flowers and Feathers, just stick to maxing Elemental Mastery on substats, and on the other slots, of course, EM main stats. And honestly, I guess, I don't know, HP percent for substats in order to make her tanky. There is no other stat to hunt. Like, you aren't focusing on the skill's damage even in the slightest. Again, you'll never use the burst. because you got only EM, that thing is not dealing damage. So yeah, just maximize as much EM as possible. She's really, really easy to build with for Hyperbloom. But you know, with regular Raiden, the ceiling is much higher on damage. That's the thing. Very high, very high floor with Hyperbloom and easy to build, but super high ceiling on regular Raiden, but more difficult to build. That's for artifacts. On team comps that Raiden can fit, there are quite a few that like Raiden. She's very good for off-field electro applications, so Dendro teams can benefit nicely from her. Tighnari definitely likes Raiden for the range of her skill and burst damage buff, even if Tighnari has only a 40 cost burst. And I tried Raiden with Tighnari in the latest Abyss, and they really nicely fitted with each other. One rotation was just using skills and then, you know, and then using Tighnari in, and then using bursts, and then going with Raiden, and it actually made a really nice rotation. The team, if you want to know, was Tighnari, Yao Yao, Raiden, and Fischl. And it worked really well. Again, Tighnari really likes Raiden. The range is really awesome because Tighnari is a bow user, he's away, and then the extra burst damage is super welcome. And of course, again, really nice AoE electro application. Another Dendro character is Al-Haytham. He likes the extra burst damage as well, since it scales really well with just stats alone. It has a high cost, so it's really nice. And Raiden provides the really nice AoE electro for Al-Haytham. Physical is another team comp for Raiden. It's mainly Eula. I mean, we don't really have many other physical characters. But Eula really wants Raiden, since buffing Eula's burst is a very big plus. Also high burst cost. Very easy AoE superconduct triggering. And at the very worst, for battering Eula. Usually you won't use Raiden's burst, because in superconduct, depending, at most with Eula you'll have a Bennett there, right, to also buff Raiden if needed. But most of the time for battering Eula, there's a cryo battery, right? So at worst, Raiden is good for battering Eula, but she offers a lot of other things. And again, easy superconduct and that extra burst damage buff. Lastly, for main Raiden is Hyper Raiden. This team comp focuses on maximizing Raiden's damage, and for the most time it has been Bennett, Sara at C6, and Kazuha. But with Dendro, you can slot in a Dendro character to boost Raiden's damage with Quicken. Most likely instead of Bennett, that can be your best bet. As for Furina, which has also been a case on replacing somebody to help Raiden in her burst damage, she's a very good choice, especially since Raiden helps Furina massively on decreasing her energy needs. The only thing is that she can make Swirling Electro very hard, and if you are to bring Dendro to play sort of a quick bloom thingy, you will need very good Dendro application in order for Furina summons to not remove Dendro from the enemies. And whilst also you need to make sure you have healing to not die from Furina's HP drain. So it can be really tough to choose teammates if your main combo is Furina and Raiden. And again, especially if you also want to bring Dendro. So, yeah. So while Furina is very good, there are plenty of requirements to be met when pairing her with Raiden. Other than those, any general buffers will work with Raiden. Zhongli with his Res, Shred, and Shield is really nice. Mona is pretty good since she can use Thrilling Tales. And buffing the initial slash is the main thing to buff on Raiden because of big PP damage. So Mona's Omen duration being a bit small isn't a problem. She'll still buff a few of the attacks. But that big hit of the first slash is really good. And then for Hyper Raiden, the last thing to mention, since she's very new, is Sevruz. I barely covered her in the rapid review because she was in beta, but now that she's out, she has quickly become buddies with Raiden. Yeah, when Sevruz's main point is buffing electro damage and having electro res shred, well, she's gonna be really good for Raiden, and she heals. The main problem is that she forces you to only be able to use Overload, so the only time to bring a Raiden Sevruz team is on bosses and big enemies that won't get tossed around by Overload. If those conditions are met, then this team is basically an easier, older variation of a Hyper Raiden team, since you don't need to be careful with swirls. And then for Hyper Bloom Raiden, anything. No joke. Anything that can trigger Hyper Bloom is enough. Right, get Hydro, get Dendro, and then put Raiden in. That's it. Genuinely, that's it. Nahida is the best for AoE deep wood application, right, and Dendro application, of course, right, but you can just grab a Yao Yao or maybe a Baizu as well. But yeah, like, just somebody. Do you have... Bring Kokomi for AoE application. Bring Xingqiu if somebody, let's say, like a Baizu or Nahida is going to be on the field. Generally, it's so easy to build an EM Hyper Bloom Raiden again and just slap something that will create blooms. That's about it. And let's finish with weapons. The good thing with Raiden is that she's very free-to-play friendly to build on weapons. The one undisputed best weapon on 4 stars is the Catch. It gives energy recharge, it has a decent base attack, and it buffs Raiden's burst. You can't ask for anything else. This thing has it all. Go fish for refinements, and that's it. The only other contender is Wavebreaker's Fin from the weapon banner, but only on high refinements, and it is very team reliant. It needs characters with high cost bursts in the team, so it's gonna depend. It's gonna be very, very dependent on how good it is. Other than that, it's just not worth it using another weapon, not only because of the free-to-play nature of the Catch, but also because they are not close to damage to it. The new Battle Pass weapon, Ballad of the Fjords, is nice since it has plenty of useful stats. It gives you crit rate, it has okay base attack, and it gives you a lot of elemental mastery, but it's locked in the Battle Pass and you have to use Dendro, else it loses completely because you cannot use the elemental mastery that it gives. Just for the crit alone, it's not worth it. The Catch has crit rate on the burst. Well, it's not a visible crit rate that you can see in your stats compared to Ballad of the Fjords, it still is there for the main source of your damage. So yeah, Ballad of the Fjords, if you want to spend the money and you want to refine it, because it refines really well, the elemental mastery buff is really big and it counts on aggravate. But yeah, you must use Dendro. And you must make sure that you are able to aggravate a lot of hits with your Dendro character. Else the elemental mastery goes super wasted and this weapon falls down significantly. For Hyper Bloom, Dragon's Bane. As said, you're not hunting for any other stat except for EM, and Dragon's Bane gives the most without any refinements needed. The end. There's no other weapon that gives as much elemental mastery, and then there's no other useful effect. There's no weapon that increases your reaction damage. There is the Sumeru craftable, but that thing is incredibly inconsistent on needing to pick up the leaf it spawns, and also you need to craft. So, not it. Dragon's Bane. I think maybe Ballad of the Fjords, actually? On high refinements, I think it does give 200 elemental mastery, but you'll need $50 for that, okay? Right, so Dragon's Bane maxes out around 185 elemental mastery, but if you meet the requirements for Ballad of the Fjords, it gives you 250, I think, around there. So it is definitely more, but again, it's $50. Dragon's Bane, you only need 1. So think about that. Other than that, maybe an energy recharge weapon, to help out some teammates if you have energy problems, because again in Hyper Bloom Raiden you will not use the burst, so you cannot use the energy restoration of it. So maybe something, but you will lose a lot of damage. On Hyper Bloom, every point of elemental mastery counts. On 5 stars, actually plenty of them can outperform the Catch, but they're more premium. Jade Spear is a very good option, nice crit and high base attack to help those attack substats. And while the initial slash of the burst will not benefit from the stacks of Jade Spear, it most likely is not worth it, like stacking the stacks before using the burst. You'll ruin the rotation most likely. Because of that, it's not a problem actually. You will stack it pretty quickly, and the attacks that will benefit from this thing will be nice. It genuinely out-damages the Catch even on R1 because of the really nice stats it has. An interesting one is Skyward Spine. It has better base stats than the Catch, but at a first glance, a worst passive. Yeah, the lack of the burst crit rate and damage makes Spine worse, but the attack speed can enable some weird stuff with Raiden. Usually with Raiden, you most likely will just spam charge attacks. I didn't necessarily mention this, and I'm sorry for that, but after you activate Raiden's burst, usually you'll just see people just do constantly charge attacks, and because of how Raiden works, she will also do one attack. Some people use 3 normal attacks and then a charge attack in order to save up a bit on stamina, but most of the time it's just attack, charge attack, attack, charge attack, attack, charge attack, attack, charge attack. With Skyward Spine though, during Raiden's burst, hit lag does become less than other characters. And I have tested stacking attack speed on Raiden, and I did feel the effect. Like, I did see Raiden go nuts. So with Spine, you can search up a few weird attack combos that can outperform the catch just because you get to weave in more attacks because of the attack speed buff. Don't try to bring any other characters, just this small attack speed buff can be weird. And again, because of the higher base stats, the base attack and the energy recharge that has more than the catch can help with substats buffing Raiden more. Skyward Spine is a very weird contender against the catch. I mean, I don't know if you like it more visually as well, but yeah, it's weird, no joke. Like, it is a very interesting discussion. After Spine, because we need to finish, is Calamity Queller, which is Senhe's weapon. It beats the catch, and Raiden is surprisingly one of the few characters that can actually use this weapon. But if you have this, most likely you have Senhe, and she has this on. Additionally, Jade Spear is better, and it's easier to get. So it's kind of not worth it, honestly, to hunt down a Senhe banner in order to get this. So yeah. Staff of Homa is another generalist weapon that performs fine with Raiden, usually better than the catch even at above 50% HP, and just like other 5-star, the stats it gives can help with balancing your build. And that's about it, just the general stats that it gives, good base attack, really good amount of crit damage, and then just the bit of attack that you'll get from the HP just beats the catch on raw stats alone. Also, the one thing that I'll mention on the next one is that the catch is fully focused on the burst, while these generalist stats that the 5-stars and some other weapons can give you also benefit the skill. And even if the coordinated attacks don't deal a lot of damage, the first initial slash can deal a lot. Put that away for a second, let's talk about the final weapon. The final weapon is Raiden's own Engulfing Lightning. This bad boy, of course, was made for Raiden. It has a fuck ton of energy recharge, and the biggest boost is the energy recharge to attack conversion, making energy recharge extremely valuable. And this is where we go back to artifacts, not the skill thingy. Engulfing Lightning changes stuff a lot. First of all, energy recharge is a must on the Sands, not attack percent, not even close. Because it gives you the best of both worlds. Damage everywhere, and now attack. Also now, while Emblem stops at 300% ER, Engulfing Lightning and Raiden's second Ascension talent do not. Meaning that now that you have Engulfing Lightning giving you so much ER, plus its effect where you get 30% ER after casting your burst, this means that you very, very easily will break 300% energy recharge with that extra 30 or not. It is still recommended to have some attack subset. It has a high base attack. But now that limit of 300% ER is kind of tossed out of the window, and getting more ER isn't a problem more than 300%. Because you're not maxing out the buffs you can get compared to without Engulfing Lightning. And while Engulfing Lightning has an upper limit to reach, to the attack conversion, to reach it at R1, you need around 360% energy recharge, which you will not reach. So don't worry about going a bit overboard with the effect of Engulfing Lightning. But as I said, the really big boost that I saw from Engulfing Lightning is the skill. The catch is fully focused on the burst, but you shouldn't disregard the damage of Raiden's skill. The initial cast can deal a good amount of damage, and the coordinated attacks slowly stack up. So with Engulfing Lightning and other 5-star weapons, giving you a nice generalist stat boost, with Engulfing Lightning being the attack, it makes your skill hit much more compared to using the catch. For me, I usually hit around 12 to 70k max, 17k max with the catch, but with Engulfing Lightning, I saw 40k initial attack, which is a lot for a 10 seconds cooldown skill on a secondary thing, right? The main thing is the burst. So having this secondary effect, secondary ability just dealing 40k casually, you can see the big boost it offers. And again, this also counts for other weapons as well. That's how they out-damage the catch. Maybe you'll see a bit slighter or similar damage to the burst, but that skill will increase, so the general team damage will increase. That's why they're ranked higher. I would say, though, it's not worth hunting for Engulfing Lightning compared to fishing for the catch. But if you get lucky, then it is a hefty boost. I have a trick. It's not a trick. It's a, it's luck. But holy fuck, has it happened many times. If I had a dime for the times that this has happened to me, I'll have a plenty. If you want to hit the weapon on the weapons banner, then waste your resources. I fished for the cat since it was introduced, but I leveled it up fully. Then I got Wavebreaker's Fin on high refinements, so I leveled that up a lot, and then I was like, I got like 30 pulls, watch me pull an Engulfing Lightning. Guess what happened? And this has happened to me a lot. I raised the black sword for Ayato, I got his weapon. I raised some other stuff to switch Al-Haytham to Mistsplitter and then my Ayaka to something else, I got Al-Haytham's weapon. My luck on the weapons banner is bullshit, and I kind of don't want it because I just want to lose Gravestone. But yeah, good trick. Waste the resources and then pull. And that's it. I hated Raiden, and I still hate Raiden for the Booba sword mainly. And as it is just city fan service. But I wanted to have some fun with Hyper Bloom, while also getting another Electro unit for my Dendro teams. I only used Beidou and Fischl, and I was like, man, I really want some AoE Electro actually. And especially for my Tinari. Tinari is fun, and Raiden is one of his best teammates, as we mentioned. So I really got her for that. That's it. Like the video if you liked it, sub to help the channel out, and follow me on Twitch. Next up, I really don't know what I'm going to do, because there just aren't any characters now that I'm interested in building or pulling for stuff. Maybe Risley when he reruns, maybe Chlorine if her kit is interesting. More Electros though, but honestly I will mostly pull for her, if I pull for her, just to complete the Nier voice cast collection, since she voices 2B in Automata. I have Baizu for Big Bro Nier, Yayao for Emil from Reincarnation, from Replicant, Rineto Deer or Gold, Albedo's mom, is Kaine, and holy fuck, where is my Natsuki Hane? Where is my 9S? Where is my Shota that he will voice? I had such high hopes that he would voice Gaming, but nope. And also we still need A2 or some other important Nier cast. But yeah, that's the only reason why I would get Chlorine. Or if she has a really interesting kit. Other than that, really the character reviews will most likely be pushed back. I'll see you in another video. Lantern Ride is upon us. A new area is also upon us. So that's definitely in the works. That video is in the works. The Abyss just reset today while I'm doing this recording. So you're also going to see an Abyss video pretty quickly. So await those. Again, sub to the channel and use the bell to get notified for these videos when they come out. But for a character review, I'm gonna need to just push myself to raise someone. Maybe Gaming? Maybe I'll get the boy in Lantern Rite and maybe use him a bit for some fun and review him, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll end this video. Goodbye.